Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. On today's episode, I have a female by the name of Cheryl Hunter. Cheryl, how are you?
I am doing so well, blessed and grateful. Thank you, sir.
Oh, man. So I got to blast this out, right? Like, this is a story that when we talked before, I mean, how do you take a story like the one that you're getting ready to reveal, turn it into a positive, and then come out on the other side helping people, influencing the world? That's impressive to me. So I'm just going to start out and tell everybody there's one statistic that I heard that every 98 seconds someone is sexually assaulted. I think that's just absolutely mind blowing, which is going to open up to why you're here. So you're a women's advocate, you're an author, best-selling author, kidnap survivor, rape survivor, and world-renowned speaker. You've been on Dr. Phil, all the major networks, CNN, Fox, all of the big networks. And of course, as we explained, we don't want you to be nervous because of our big show here. And you have a story that not only is captivating, but made world headline news. And you're this lady that comes from Rye, Colorado. We're shooting out of Colorado, so I didn't even know where Rye was. I had to ask you. So let's just go down a little bit of the story. I kind of want to let our audience just dive right into the story in the beginning, and then I'm really going to draw on your expertise and your wisdom and your knowledge for the listeners to pick up some really good things here today.
Fantastic. I'm very excited. Let's do this.
Fire away. Tell us that story.
So, yes, I grew up in or near, actually, Rye, Colorado, which Coloradans, as you know, are like, where is that? Super remote near the San Isabel National Forest, which is the largest national forest in Colorado. It gives you a sense of how remote it was from our horse ranch where I grew up. Looking out, it could have been 100 years prior, 200 years prior. There really were no signs of civilization, except for the fact that we were in the flyover zone. I would go out, sit on my horse, and I would face backwards when he was bareback and place my homework on his rump and sit there and just daydream and do my homework and read books. And it was just a fantastic childhood. I would lie there in the meadows and look at the planes flying over as I had, lying there among the cows and horses. And I would see the planes overhead and I thought, man, I want to be the girl in the plane, looking at the girl lying down on the field. And I just don't know who I'd have to be somebody who was going places like that, being on a plane. And I thought, well, I'd have to have some way of helping people, something I could teach or something. And I thought, well, I rodeo a lot. I know how to ride horses, but God, there's people way better than I am at that. So that's out. What could I do? And as I got older, this wonderful, idyllic place in the mountains seemed too confining. I wanted to get out and really go places. I wanted to see the cities that I had read about or watched in movies or TV. I wanted to meet people I wasn't related to by blood. I wanted to see the world. And I played hooky one day, hopped on my mini bike, rode to the nearest convenience store, which was a bit of a hike, none in Rye. And I picked up a magazine. As a teenage girl, Glamour magazine seemed like viable advice, real career advice for my future. And the magazine was talking about how they're always looking for models. And I thought, I'd never thought of or really had any aspirations to that, but there's no denying they weren't looking for models in Rye. I'd have to go to some big city. Where do they need models? Well, I guess all fashion comes from Europe, maybe. So I was like, there's the plan. I'm going to go to Europe and become a model.
I heard this story and I'm like, you know what? It like, you can picture that in your mind like a movie, right? You're on a horse kind of in a very secluded, and I remember in some stuff that I had done for research that, yeah, you played on the boys basketball team. That tells me there's probably wasn't a whole wasn't a whole huge school where you had probably boys and girls basketball and stuff. I'm thinking the way the story unfolds, like I could totally picture it in my mind.
Now, what do you think? I'm not a good basketball player?
No, I'm saying it didn't sound like there's a whole lot of people in Rye, Colorado, because I end up looking it up.
That is accurate. We had one stoplight that would flash yellow on one side and flash red on the other. And it marked the fact that there was in fact a town. Now it's since been replaced by only a stop sign. However, I digress. So it just seemed like somehow this modeling might be the ticket. This might be a viable way to get out into the world. It wasn't that I thought I'd do that kind of thing forever, but I thought, I'm resourceful. I'll figure it out once I get there. So talked my best friend into going on a trip, and we graduated high school, saved our money, had jobs. The big day came, and here we were. We get to France, and immediately a man with a big fancy looking camera around his neck walks up and says, "Hey, are you a model? I can make you one. Just come with me and my friend over there." This big, tall guy. And I thought, first, that's how easy it is to become a model in France. And then I thought, well, this is probably not the smartest idea, but I'm a ranch girl. I'm strong. I'm scrappy. I'm smart. I can drive a tractor trailer. I'll figure it out. I wasn't a match for these criminals, no matter how strong and scrappy I thought of myself.
How old were you?
18.
18.
And they asked me if I wanted wine. I said, "Oh no, I want to be good for the photos." And I wasn't a drinker. I mean, it just wasn't my thing. I was too naive. And they said, "Oh, don't be so American. Have a glass of wine. It's not going to kill you." Something along those lines. And I had some wine. It was Sauvignon Blanc, which seemed so fancy and highfalutin. I thought, wow, I'm really living the life. The next thing I know, I'm in the front seat, passenger side of a car, and I've got my head like a dog. The window's open. I'm kind of hanging my head out with my tongue out. And I said to myself, this can't be good. This is not good. And I mustered all the sort of strength that I could and said, "Are we going to shoot the photos?"
Did you know at that time you'd been drugged?
Well, I mean, it wasn't normal. I woke up there. We're driving these windy roads, and I'm like, "Whoa, are we going to shoot the photos? Are we going to shoot the photos?" I just so naively still believed, even though it was clear something was wrong. I kept passing out. This was not normal. I kept naively thinking they were still going to make me a model. It threw out the whole ordeal. I mean, you can kind of fill in the gory details with your mind. These men, criminals, and me. I just kept asking them, "Are we going to shoot the photos? When are we going to shoot the photos?" They took me to this, I guess it was a construction site. They had that big, thick plastic hanging up and just cement floors. And I just kept asking them that same question. I think how just I was so young. I was so that it's not that young, but I was so sheltered and so naive. I knew a lot about horses. I knew a lot about rodeos and gymkhanas. I didn't know a lot about much anything else. They brutalized me. Again, I won't, you can use your own imagination, but why? I just didn't understand why. Tried to drown me, tortured me, beat me, just beat the crap out of me. I couldn't understand why they were so angry. Eventually, they let me go, and I have no idea why. To this day, we were driving and they went to this grassy area and just pushed me out. I just slumped on the ground like this heap of a girl. And I just laid there. My impulse, the best I could come up with at that time was I was going to pretend to be dead, like play dead. But first, the guy who, the ringleader, the guy with the camera who dropped me off, so to speak, dumped me there, says, "Darling," calls out to me, "Darling," like I'm his girlfriend, some damn thing. And I look over my shoulder and he starts shooting the photos. So I'm lying there on the ground.
That's the part that killed me when I heard that about the story.
While I was captive, I thought, oh my God, please, God, let me go. Let me go. Let me be free. Everything will be okay. And I kept vowing to God, like bargaining with God, I'll be a good person. And I was lying there on the cement, bargaining with God, please let me be free. Let me go, and I will be a good person. I will be nice to my brother and sister. I'll do what my mom and dad say without complaining and talking back. Like in the mind of a girl, which I was, the best I could come up with was, this is my fault somehow. This is my fault. I'm being punished. And my understanding of God was kind of punitive. I'm being punished for having been bad. So I'm lying there assessing my sins, my shortcomings, like being unkind to my grandma by not holding her hand. And I bargained with God, please, please let me be free. But then there I am. I'm free. I'm no longer captive. And the crazy paradox was, I'm like, wait, I'm free, right, Dr. Mitch? I'm free. Yeah. I should be so happy. But I wasn't. I was more captive now than ever. I was captive to what's between my ears. I was captive to the thoughts, everything, replaying the whole thing. Every time I did, I would remember some new horror of what had happened, some new wrinkle in the story, some horrible thought or feeling, or I was plagued with thoughts of revenge and why did God hate me so much and why me? And I thought I was so ruined. Here I am, a teenager, and I'm ruined for life. I'm filthy and damaged. And if anybody ever found out, they would run from me. And I'd be alone with this captivity between my ears, this hell. And the best I could come up with at the time was I was just going to pretend it didn't happen. I would never tell anyone. And I would just pretend even to myself, no, 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 and push it down. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. Not a particularly good strategy for
Right,
dealing with dealing with trauma. But it was the best I had. I couldn't tell anybody, and so there was no way of finding out a better way. Eventually I'd read books and things, but at the very moment, the immediate impact, it was just pretend this didn't happen.
Mm. You know, I again, I've heard the story. I did a lot of research, and there's one of the things that I think about is why the you now. How did you come to this conclusion where now you're impacting all these lives, and the origin is of the story? So you're sitting on the back of that horse and you're looking at that plane, want to be that girl in that plane, and you're going to go do this modeling career, and you head to Europe and you do, but then this happens to you, but then you become a massive influence in the world. I ponder that. Does that cross your mind?
Well, boy, there was a minute in between, right? And I mean, quite some time. I just the Cliff's Notes version, I said to myself, look, I'm not the first person to go through hell. There's people who've gone through way worse than I have. What did those people do and how did they overcome? Yes, I read the books. Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, for example. Yeah, but I felt that I needed to go through the catharsis of figuring out for myself. I started volunteering at old age homes, and there were war vets and Holocaust survivors and people who'd been through the unthinkable. And I made it my mission to figure out why some overcame and others never did. I spent
Uh,
many years there just listening, gleaning, codifying ultimately what did they do that helped them overcome. And I came up with a real framework to overcome adversity, and I used it myself. It worked. I started beta testing it with other survivors, sexual assault, violent crime, trafficking, to see if it would work with them, and it did. And there were two other things I was doing at the time. One, I started taking personal development seminars just as a way to survive, quite frankly, initially. And then I finished all the programs, and I felt so good when I was there. I didn't want to stop. And I asked them, well, what else do you got for me? And they said, well, you can become one of our program leaders. And I was like, I'm writing a lot and pitching and trying to sell a TV show. I think I'd rather do that as my career. And they go, well, you can still be trained to lead and even lead as a volunteer if you want. And then you're really kind of the author of all these things because you're providing it for other people. And I was like, yes, I'll do that. So I was leading personal development seminars, and then I sold some TV shows, and I was writing and producing network television. And I could see the power that major media had to shape the collective conversation, like water cooler moments where everybody in the nation's talking about the same thing. And I thought, whoa, I'm going to connect the dots here. What if those water cooler moments, those moments where we're all having the same conversation, what if I could get my overcome adversity work out to people, and everyone in the nation was talking about something like that could truly change lives? That has got to be the mission now. And I thought, I'm in TV already. I'm so connected. I'll be able to get my message out like nothing. It'll be so easy. Do you know, it took me over a decade to get out there and do the Dr. Phils and all that. It was so hard. It was like, I thought at first, dang, nabbit, I'm in the industry, but it seems like major media is designed to keep you out. And I realized it is. And
yeah.
it took so darn long. It was really hard. And once I finally did share my story with, in front of like many millions of people, I thought, okay, it's time for me to take a good hard look here. There is an industry dedicated to helping people overcome trauma. I'm going to respectfully step back now and leave that work that I've been doing to the psychiatrists and psychologists in that industry. There's nothing that exists to help people with a mission on their heart get out there in front of millions on media. It's so dang hard. If I worked in TV and couldn't do it for a decade, these other folks don't stand a snowball's chance in hell.
Mhm.
I am going to figure it out. And so I gathered the journalists that I'd made friends with and the TV bookers and producers. And I said, is this a crazy idea? What if we were to encircle folks who want to make a difference in this world and help them get out in major media and so they can be renowned and serve at the highest level? I really think all the problems we're facing in the world today could be solved if people who wanted to solve them were known. And that's what we're all talking about, as opposed to all this divisive nonsense that we talk about. I mean, that's what you do every day here. Get good stories out to the world and good messages. And I thought, now that is actually going to be my life's work, helping folks with a mission on their heart become renowned. Look, when I stop talking about what's really happening in my life started to become so small. There were fewer and fewer things I could actually speak to people about. I became a model anyway. I decided, screw it, I'm going to do this. And I was very successful at it, but it was the weirdest career because, like, in some way, nobody wants you to talk and they don't want to know you. They just look at you as a meat suit upon whom they can hang clothes or put their lipstick or whatever. It's just like, stand over here, smile, pout, do whatever you're supposed to do. Nobody wanted to talk to me, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. When I did, I would just make jokes and do funny accents and do anything to keep people as far away from me as I humanly could. I didn't want to, I thought, God, if I say anything, someone's going to smell on me how ruined I am. They're just going to know it. They're going to instinctively know that I am damaged goods. I cannot let anyone near me, or I will be ostracized from the entire world's community.
How does this make you feel about men in general?
Oh, well, look, first of all, I have made up with my father. He's one of the closest people in my life. That was a temporary thing. I do want to say that. That was all about me, nothing about him. I did a lot of work. Therapy, these personal development programs that I took and then later led. It was all incredibly therapeutic. At first in therapy, before I told my own story, I talked about hypothetically going through possible non-consensual sex. How does one overcome that? Asking for a friend kind of thing. But eventually I did deep work. I'm healed. It's possible. It's why I wanted to tell the world, you can overcome adversity. Here's how. But I love men in all contexts. My brother is one of the closest men to me in my life. My father and I are extraordinarily close. My dad said something when I finally told him, and I told the whole family. And I did that because I had given an interview for a movie. It was the first time I told my story in a real big public setting. The first day I did it was leading one of these seminars. There was a filmmaker in there. He said, I'm making a film called Discover the Gift. We've finished shooting. We're going to shoot some outside shots for credits or some damn thing. Tomorrow, would you please tell your story? And in the heat of the moment, I go, sure. I went home and stared at the mirror literally till like 2:33 a.m. going, am I going to do this? Am I going to open this Pandora's box? And I said, I am no longer a child who's afraid for my life. I am no longer running from these men. I am no longer worried that I am damaged goods. I am healed, and it is my sacred duty to share this story so people can heal. And I went and told the story in this movie that was coming out in like a week or something crazy, week and a half. the big debut in Los Angeles. And I had to tell my family now. I told my dad, and he goes, my pop's a third generation rancher. So he says, I understand why you didn't tell me. I'd have wanted to kill those sons of bitches. And I would have done so. I would have figured it out. And you probably just needed to be held. And I'm like, oh my God, I just lost it. But I love men. My man is a protector. He's a 22-year Marine fighter pilot. I mean, God, men, God bless you. You are the protectors and providers of this world. And it's not like I can't protect or provide myself, but the gift it is to surrender to the good men of the world. God bless you. I know you're one. It is such a gift. So.
Oh, I tell you what, like that was just gold for me, right? Because I know that that's exactly what she needs to hear. Because she's not quite there yet. And it's been a long time. That was exactly, I was even going to ask you if it wasn't too personal. I wanted to know what your dad's reaction was, because it would be mine. Like I'm heading over there. I'm going to find the guy with the camera, and it's going to ruin my whole life, but I don't care. And so thank you for that, opening up for that. I hadn't actually seen that on any other interviews, and I was hoping to get there.
Yeah, it's not, look, you're incredible. This is not like other interviews. Thank you, Mitch.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's what's in my head. And, I think the greatest gift that we have is being able to tell our story so that someone else doesn't have to go through the pain that we did. And if we can do that, and you can get super honest about just life in general, it's healing. Like it's wicked amounts of healing that happens very, very, very quickly. And so, yeah, when I first heard about you, I was like, I'd listened to all this stuff, and I'm thinking what I always think that goes through my mind first is, my God, the courage it took to say it, right? The courage it took, because I would be thinking the same thing. What are people going to think about me? What are people going to think about me? And man, the moment that you can get past that, greatness happens.
It's so interesting you say that. I was leading one of these personal development seminars, and the first time I ever shared, and we were doing an exercise on forgiveness. And I was standing up at the front of the room, and tonight's exercise is anything can be forgiven. Please discuss. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but I had been for many years leading these seminars, hundreds of people in there. And yet this was the night I was, for the first time, going to lose the room. This woman starts violently shaking her hand as she storms up to the front of the room to the microphone and says, no, 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 no. There are certain things that can't be forgiven. And she starts to list the things she's survived. And virtually anybody in the world would go, she's right. That shit can't be forgiven. I'm just kind of holding the party line here. Nope. This is the exercise. We're going to go through it. Everything can be forgiven. It's not about them. It's about releasing you and all this stuff. And this man stands up, grabs his notebooks and books and slams them on the ground. This is bullshit. And people are standing up and starting to literally move to the door. And I thought, why am I holding this inside when I've got this actual thing that I could say that's far more impactful than reading the manual at this point? Who am I trying to protect? I'm no longer a teenage girl. And I shared my story for the first time ever.
By the way, you were in a red dress, and it was minute 4:12 when your shoulders collapsed. At the moment, probably inside your head, you said, I'm going to tell the story. Does that ring a bell?
Who are you?
I love the brain.
Oh my God, you're brilliant.
The brain is my thing. And
God, you're so good.
You were in a red dress, and it was minute 4:12. Your shoulders stopped. I can see you turning towards the podium. There was a little kiosk behind you. I take these visual images in my head, but I saw it at that moment was when you were like the shoulders dropped and inside your head you had made that commitment. I saw it at that moment. Does that ring a bell?
It does ring a bell. It's God, the brain is fascinating. God, with your background, I'm gonna put that in pause for 1 second. I had a severe traumatic brain injury as a kid. Not surprising growing up on a horse ranch. I was in a coma and it was very bad. And, one of the things these men did in France was kick me in the head. So unquestionably, I had more brain trauma from it. But it's like there's something so amazing in the way the brain works and pieces it all together. Do you know that the reason I was sharing the about sharing the story for the first time is the moment that I spoke it, owned my experience and what I had gone through, it's as though the brain goes ship, and all of that constant chatter that I'd been dealing with, even though I'd done a lot of therapy, I'd created my own educational framework to overcome adversity. I'd been taking and leading personal development seminars. I'd read every book on the topic. I had really come a long way, but I realized the final step in liberating oneself is being able to claim and own and name and speak about that which has occurred. Now, for some, that's being able to speak to a trusted loved one or a therapist or physician or whomever, spouse, partner. For others, it's maybe a support group. For others, it's no, I have got to share this with the world. There is a commitment I have to making a difference in that way, whatever our desired or necessary way is. You'd started this conversation by talking about the cathartic, therapeutic, transformative ability that it is to share one's own story. And it's why it's so important, the work that you do.
The telling of story, good and bad, it needs to hear it all. And I think that's a little bit why we're all pissed about politics right now. We're all pissed about the world and whatever else because we're not telling the truth anymore. And I loved what you said about media. You're in it, and it was difficult, right? And it wouldn't be so difficult if we just told the truth. I tell you what, I couldn't have asked for a better show today. You're as amazing as I thought you were going to be. But tell us how, because you do so much, tell us how people watching the show can learn more about you.
Absolutely. My website is CherylHunter.com, and it's CHERYL Hunter.com. And there's everything there. I've got links to social. And if you're one of those people who wants to share your message with the world, there's info on that too. We can help you do that. Anything. I would love to stay in touch. And for you, Dr. Mitch, absolutely. You got to look me up when you're in California.
I'm going to do it. I love it because then, a lot of times I always say around coffee, or as producer Chad and I say around tequila, you usually learn a lot more information. So that's kind of how we do it. But I appreciate you more than you know coming on this show. I know people learned a lot from that. From time to time, we run into a message or something, and we always love to come back to our special guests and be like, hey, you want to come back on and give us some more wisdom? I'm all about sharing wisdom. I love what you do. I love all the stuff that you've done. Keep spreading the message. Keep doing what you do. It's powerful.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.